Welcome into the CHGO White Sox Podcast, coming to you live from a bunch of different places all across the beautiful United States of America. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. You can follow me at Sean_W_Anderson. Alongside me is Herb Lawrence.
Hello.
You can follow him at Ecknerwall23. And Herb, it was your birthday yesterday, so it was more important, or I guess 2 days ago. Or no, yesterday. You were very important yesterday. But Vinnie, our CHGO White Sox beat writer, takes the biggest precedence. He now has palm trees behind us, so something's happening. I guess it's the offseason. Vinny is live from Scottsdale, Arizona at the General Managers Meetings and just got done with an hour-long press conference with new White Sox General Manager Chris Getz. We're going to be very excited to talk to Vinny. Again, follow him at Vinnie Duber. But why waste any time? Let's hear from Chris Getz immediately, and then we'll pester Vinny for questions for about 58 minutes or so, and leave him in the chat as well. Excited to hear from all of you, but let's hear from Chris Getz and Vinny with the question. So take it away, Vinny.
As you mentioned, the holes that you guys got to fill, also the direction you guys are going in. What direction is that, and are you approaching this offseason with the intent of competing in the AL Central next year?
Well, it's piece by piece. It really is, and. I'm set out to really improve our defensive play. We'll allow our pitchers to attack the zone and be more efficient. I do believe that we need to become more athletic. That speaks to the improved defense we hope, and obviously running the bases and taking extra bases, those types of things. The style of play. We're looking for players that understand what it takes to be on a winning ball club, and that comes to that starts with their approach to the day-to-day basis, being in the right place at the right time, on the field, and more or less being some baseball players that are going out there working together and competing. We've got a talented group. There's no question. I don't like our team. And we've got to make some adjustments so we improve for 2024.
You don't like your team, you said. So with that in mind, with that philosophy, where do you begin? I mean, do you have any untouchables like Cease and Robert?
Yeah, when I say I don't like our team, we've got pieces that are talented and they're attractive, and they can be part of a winning club, but obviously we haven't been able to go out there and perform. It's not a well-rounded club right now, and so we've got to find players to come in here to help get us in the right direction. And if that means that we use some of the players we have on our club to multiply and not only help us in the near term, but also in the long term as well. So, it's going to take time this offseason to build out this roster. But that's why we're here, at the winter meet or the GM meetings here, and having some good conversations with other clubs and certainly our own group as we set forward for our future here.
Untouchables or not?
There are no untouchables.
So we've been trying to figure out the White Sox direction since the season ended. Was that the best insight into what Chris Getz is looking forward to? There's no untouchables. The roster is kind of malleable, and they're trying to build people who know how to be a part of a winning ball club.
Yeah, it's the best one we've gotten so far. Certainly, I don't know if we've still gotten that commitment. I mean, we haven't. He did not commit today to saying this team's going to compete for the AL Central in 2024, nor did he say the opposite. We're focused solely on competing in 2025. But this is clearly going to be somewhat of a longer-term proposition, not necessarily like what White Sox fans just watched Rick Hahn try to do for the last many years, but in terms of how much can they get done on their to-do list this winter. If it's not everything, then maybe the things get kicked to next winter and they've got to try to figure that out. You just heard him in that very short clip. You said we talked to him for an hour, but in that short clip, you heard him say, how much he wants this team to change. He wants the defense to improve. He wants the athleticism to improve. He knows that there are so many holes just positionally, but also in the way that he wants this team to play. He, very much praised teams like the Diamondbacks who played in a certain style and also, took advantage of the new rules, allowing base running to be a little bit more, fun, for lack of a better term, in the past season. I think he wants the White Sox to look like that. He wants the White Sox to play a very certain style. And right now, his biggest goal is not necessarily just, hey, I need to plug these spots on the field and make sure that this team is better than it was last year. It's organization-wide, establishing an identity of what I just described, a team that plays that, I don't want to say that grinder style, but plays in a way that is kind of identifiable and different, very different from what you've seen this team be built to play the last few years.
Now, I know they're hesitant to use the words rebuild, retool, any of that stuff, but if I heard that clip right, he doesn't like the team that's currently constructed, and he wants them to play better defense. And as I look at the outs above average, I see only one person who is a outs above average guy that is on the positive side, and that is Luis Robert Jr. So to me, that sounds like he wants to rebuild this team. And I know what Jerry said at the other time, but I'm glad to hear that Chris sees what we see as White Sox fans. Did he go into specifics about, rebuild, retool, any of those names, any of those words? Because this seems, with all the moves that he's made right now up until this point, and then what he said in that little clip, that he's gearing to get this team better, not necessarily next year, but the year after and the year after that.
I mean, if we were to make our own takeaways, Herb, I'd probably agree with you. Yeah, it sure seems like this is going to be a winter in which the White Sox are not going to make any moves that do not benefit them for beyond 2024. You might see a little. You can remember the rebuild era and know the little 1-year deals that they went and signed to guys to fill out rosters and stuff like that. But in terms of big, significant, substantial moves, it's going to be stuff that is long term. I mean, listen, we're going to get into this, but I'll bring it up right now. Guys like Dylan Cease, guys like Eloy Jimenez, trading them is maybe not a priority, but it's on the table if the White Sox can get back something that benefits this team and addresses those needs that Chris identified, specifically when it comes to Dylan, starting pitching, right? I mean, if he can turn one starting pitcher into 2 or 3, that might be a way to go. But again, for the long term, I'm not saying that, they're just going to go to sleep for the next few months and wait until next winter. But the moves that you do see this winter are going to be ones, in my opinion, that very much benefit this team down the road for years to come, not just, wow, we need to put a contending team out there the best we can right now for 2024, because I think the years that follow are going to be more important for this team.
Yeah, we got a super chat from Big Cram saying, I am imagining things. Is he actually going through a rebuild? Perhaps I've been too hasty. Jerry Reinsdorf, again, said speed was of the essence, basically. I think it's been a revamp, right? I mean, the biggest thing and the biggest question I have for you, you've mentioned 2 names, Eloy and Cease. What about Luis Robert? Because it seems like you had maybe a little bit more insight to what Chris Getz is thinking of if they trade Dylan Cease or Eloy Jimenez. But is he actually contemplating trading Luis Robert Jr. off this team? Because if they're trading Luis Robert Jr. off this team, yeah, that's a rebuild. I mean, that's the biggest sign of a rebuild for the Chicago White Sox. Maybe he thinks he could thread the needle with Luis Robert Jr. on his team, and I don't hate that because they have a superstar on their team, which we saw in 2023. So do you think he's actually entertaining the Robert Jr. trade talk after the hour-long conversation you had?
I think those are 2 different questions. And I think number one, is he going out to try to trade Luis Robert Jr. to start a rebuild for this team? No. Do I think that he will listen if one of these other GMs comes to him and says, hey, got an interesting proposal here for you that involves your best player, and depending on what that return is, you can't just say no to anything that comes across the board. You have to listen. That is the job of a GM, and I think that is one thing that fans, when they see these little reports all over the place, right, there's a disconnect, right? Oh, my God, they're listening to offers on Luis Robert Jr. I can't believe it. They're listening to offers on Dylan Cease. That's his job. His job is to listen. And he can sit there and listen and nod his head politely, and at the end of it, he doesn't like what he hears. He goes, no, thank you, not our thing. But there's a chance that he is going to get blown away, right? There's a chance that the offer that is being discussed is something that sets this team up better for success down the road than it is currently set up right now. So Is he going into this winter thinking I've got to trade this guy to set up a rebuild in the traditional sense? Absolutely not. Is he coming into this winter saying I'm going to listen to everything, I'm not taking anything off the table? That's right. He said so many times over and over again during that hour, we're open-minded, and I truly believe that that's what every GM needs to be. So I don't necessarily see that as breaking news, but I do want to clarify that for folks, because there is a world somewhere in the baseball multiverse. There's a world in which the offer is so good that you can't turn it down.
There's a multiverse where the White Sox have a parade too. And they're
That's
not
true.
trading these players. Hey, I don't know.
An infinite number of possibilities, Sean.
And just as a side, and I don't even question, just looked like he was, in those short clips I've seen, much more comfortable this time talking to the assembled media. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's the atmosphere of just a regular bunch of guys just talking and chilling in Arizona.
It's the shades. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, look, when you have these shades on, you got a little bit of purple on, you're untouchable.
Yeah, you look all right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. My bad. I didn't mean to step on your toes. I thought you were going to keep going.
No, that was it. That was all I had to say. I'm glad that he has an open mind coming into this first year of his offseason. So it's good that he understands what we understand, that this team is vastly broken and that it needs to be fixed. And one offseason with all of the stuff that he has to do won't probably fix all the stuff that he needs to do. So I'm glad that he is recognizing what we see.
And I mean, we could start jumping into this too. I mean, most of the positions on the field, it sure sounds like in the end, whether it's this offseason, next offseason, whatever, are going to be outside ads, because I don't think there's enough certainty in the farm system past a certain couple of positions, shortstop being one of them with Colson Montgomery. And I think there's some promise in the White Sox mind, some promise in the starting pitching that they've got down there. But everywhere else, right field, second base, Chris Getz basically said there is not that obvious in-house candidate. And it sure strikes as something that they're going to look at both this winter and maybe in future winters to get from the outside, whether that's via free agent or trade, we don't know. But I don't think you're going to see Lenyn Sosa starting at second base next year on opening day. It sure seems like the way that Chris Getz was just talking, those two positions specifically, and then probably some on the pitching front as well, is going to have to come from outside the organization.
I feel like I have to ask about the budget, so I'm going to do that first before I get into the coaching staff and maybe the outside ads and what that might mean. But did he bring up the budget at all? Was he asked about the budget? Did we get any estimate of what that might look like?
He was asked about the budget. His answer was that there is no set number right now, and that the idea is that it would be a case-by-case basis. And Sean, I know that makes you mad because you want to play math this offseason, and you want to add up who can go where, how do we get to this final number. I think that most teams, especially at this very early stage of the offseason, would say what Chris Getz said today, which is, listen, we might have a number that we want to spend or want to not go over, but you don't know what opportunities are going to present themselves. And so if they find themselves in a place where they didn't think they were going to find themselves in terms of a high-priced player, let's say, then why would they say, well, we're only X amount of dollars away from that. Sorry, bud, we can't sign you, kind of thing. It's part of being open-minded. And certainly it goes the other way too, right? Maybe they want to go out and spend X amount of money on certain specific guys that might cost that much, but they miss out, that opportunity doesn't present themselves, and they don't want to sit here having told you that they're going to spend $200 million when all they ended up having was the opportunity to spend much less.
I would like to know the number though, like, what's the number that they can approach, right? Like if they can't spend $4 million more than X, like that's the number I want to know, because I want to know the ceiling, because I know the floor. I know the floor could be, let's trade Luis Robert Jr., let's trade Dylan Cease, anybody who makes any money, and we could just become the Oakland A's. Craig Counsell has signed the 11th biggest contract in White Sox free agent history, if we're putting him into the signing books here. So, I mean, I understand how little the team can spend, but I do wonder what the ceiling is. But it does seem, especially with the rumor of Paul DeJong, possibly from Sox Machine, possibly being of interest for the White Sox at shortstop. And then you see the first base coach of Jason Bourgeois. Then you see Grady Sizemore becoming and I want to get this right, it's the major league coach. You also have Drew Butera being added and Matt Wise. But it does seem, especially with Grady Sizemore, that the focus might be, and all of the guys, all of these people that you see have major league experience, Pedro Grifol or minor league experience, Grifol, Montoyo, Katz, Wise, Thames, Tozar, Bourgeois, Rodriguez, Butera, Sizemore. That's your 2024 White Sox coaching staff. It seems, especially like if their idea is to be defensively sound, they are trying to set an example in 2024. This seems very much like what the Hawks are doing with Connor Bedard. Let's go set an example for him. The Blackhawks didn't have that awful of a showing in their last game or 2 games ago, but there was still a players-only meeting, and Jay and Greg were like, what the hell? That's kind of weird. But the idea is if we see anything, we need to be accountable. We need to call each other out. And going back to what Getz said, he wants people who understand what it takes to be a part of a winning ball club. That's like Corey Perry. That's like Nick Foligno of the Hawks. I think that, again, Chris Getz is trying to set his example for what he wants his team to look like in 2024. I might disagree with it, and I don't know if I fully see his picture. I just kind of want to play around and see, like, are they actually going to sign somebody, or is it, threatening of Luis Robert Jr.? I feel like there is no stable ground of where the White Sox go after this hour-long conversation, because it didn't seem like there was a really, a promise to do anything specific besides get better.
Yeah, but I think that they need to get a lot better. You know what I mean? Like, this is a 101 loss team. This is a team that Chris Getz fully acknowledges has just a lot of problems. It's just a team that does not approach the at-bats the way that he wants to see it. It's a team that doesn't play defense the way he wants to see it. And because of that, the pitching is not the way he wants to see it. I mean, it's for lack of a better term, it's broken on basically every front, right? And so if you're going to fix it, you can't just say, here you go, here's $150 million, hopefully that fixes it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that because those players, whoever you pay, they're not going to be here forever either, right? I mean, and I think that if you are stepping into your first year as a GM with an opportunity to remake an organization that is broken, that Chris Getz's main objective is to establish an identity and establish something that can filter through to everybody, no matter who ends up signing a contract or coming up through the minor leagues or being acquired in a trade. They want them to play that style. They can go pick guys, that they sign. They can go pick guys that they trade for. They need these minor leaguers to do the same thing. And at the end of the day, which might be years and years down the road, there is going to be this established identity that maybe that is the foundation more than this guy and this guy and this guy. It's something a little less tangible.
Well, we were asked yesterday about what free agent would you want to sign from Anthony Shulo, and all three of us said starting pitcher. I said Montgomery. You said, I think, Herb. Who'd you say? You said Herb said Snell. You said, who is it?
Giolito.
Do they have the capability to spend $70 million? It's more of when Chris Getz says he wants the defense behind the pitchers to allow them to be more efficient. Like, it's just more, are we looking for the Orioles strategy of let's go get workhorses that are just going to go eat up innings and are going to get a ton of ground balls, and we're going to have the best defense so then we can convert outs, right? Like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, if it is going to be, we can really flex on some stars here, or maybe some actual next level major league power, like a Lucas Giolito, like a Montgomery, maybe like a Snell, right? Or will it be mainly focused on guys who do their job the right way, right? Like, maybe you're not trying to impress everybody, just like, Chris Getz's former teammate, Mark Burley, but he gets the job done, right? I'm just trying to maybe figure out if the budget could give us a hint to the philosophy of what Getz is trying to do. Because it does seem like, again, they're just trying to be more professional. I don't know what Getz saw from within the organization, Herb, but it does seem like he wants the White Sox to show up on time, put in the work. And I listened to an interview with Grady Sizemore, and that's what he said. He loved committing to the work. So he's going to teach these guys. He's going to coach them how to be major leaguers. That's what the major league coach does.
I'm glad to hear that. But Vinny, I want to know too, like, I know GM meetings, you usually meet up and discuss rules. Maybe you're going to maybe change and then set up some deals that you're going to do down the road at the winter meetings and beyond. But is there anything stated by Chris Getz in this hour-long session that he wants to focus on, or the priorities before they leave, I think, on Thursday? And then the second thing, who else accompanied Chris Getz? Is it just him, or is it some of the new front office people?
Yeah, I think most of the new front office brain trust is here. I walked past Josh Barfield. I know he's here. I saw Jeremy Haber. I know he's here. Gene Watson I was told was here as well. So, that should come as no surprise. This is the GM meetings. This is where you kind of get these guys all in here to start the offseason in earnest. I don't think you usually this time of year see the deals or the moves kind of thing when you get them this early. Certainly significant ones, it's a surprise, right? And so for signing when they were here in Arizona for the GM meetings, what was that, 2019? So and then you've got obviously these GMs talking to each other and setting up, having conversations that might lead to other conversations that might lead to this. So there's no strict schedule, right? I mean, two guys could walk up to each other and say, you like this trade? And they say, boy, do I. And they can work it out here, in 5 minutes. But that's not usually how things happen. And so these conversations are just beginning now. And that's why you see things usually materialize later in the offseason.
We're going to take a quick break. Herb is going to boldly lead us into the break today, and I'm excited to answer some fan questions and bug Vinnie more about Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez trades. Also, talking about if Chris Getz is the same as Rick Hahn, because I know there was that comment that he's just a dude in a Rick Hahn mask, right? So we'll see if he showed a little bit more different of a personality. And two, to answer Victor Von Doom, Grady Sizemore is technically not retired. So maybe a new strategy from Chris Getz will be to employ player coaches. We will ask Vinny if he addressed that. He probably didn't. Herb, take it away.
Started eating Hero Bread because I have type 2 diabetes and didn't want to give up my favorite foods like sandwiches, wraps, and quesadillas. And Hero Bread has been great for me, and I'm sure you'll agree when you give it a try. If you need a new low-carb option to fit your lifestyle and dietary constraints, the founder of Hero Bread, Cole Glass, baked 100 muffins per day before he found the perfect blend that fits into his allergy constraints. That's what pushed him to start Hero Bread. The taste and texture of Hero Bread tastes just like your favorite bread, your favorite tortilla. It's so delicious and fluffy. And one thing I like, I usually make these wraps or burritos. You know how those burritos just sometimes don't close right? Hero Bread, when I fold it over, closes perfectly. Never have a problem with any of the stuff staying inside of the Hero Bread. And Hero Bread makes sliced breads, buns, tortillas that are all available at hero.co and Amazon. But right now, Hero Bread is offering the CHGO fam 10% off their first order. Just go to hero.co and use our code CHGO to save on Hero Bread today. That's HERO.co to save 10% today.
Thank you, Herb. We also want to let you know about our friends over at Circa Sportsbook, and we mainly want to let you know about our event that's coming up on Thursday, November 9th. Circa Sports Illinois will be hosting a watch party for the Thursday night game on at Joe's on Wheat Street from 6:30 to 11 p.m. on November 9th. Brian Urlacher will be there from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. meeting fans and taking pictures. And the Circa Sports Illinois team will be there with limited edition merchandise, food deals, and more. You can reserve at circasports.com right now. And Circa Sports is your home for is your sports book for the low hold model. Games will strive to be a -110 split on the Circa Sports menu, unlike other sports books, which may use a -115 or -120 split. Circa is very proud of their odds, and they want you and encourage you to compare lines from each sports book, and you will learn why the world's largest sports book always has the best odds for you, the better. And the Circa customer service is unbeatable. They have real people behind the Circa Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike other books who use chat box. And all aspects of the app are being run by the same team that runs the main Circa Sports at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. So download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app. That's circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also be on the lookout for Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. If you or somebody you know might have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537, text GMB 833-234, or visit areyoureallywinning.com. Okay, Vinny, let's get into more chatter here. Let's focus in on Cease. It's not really surprising that there is trade talk because, as you mentioned, this isn't the first time that Chris Getz said there's no untouchables, but it also seemed like there was some chatter around the trade deadline, even when Rick Hahn was in charge. Did you get more clarity of, probably not of what the Sox are looking for, but maybe what it would take from the Sox, or maybe what they're looking for within younger pitchers? Did Chris Getz maybe define what Brian Bannister is trying to carve out within the pitchers that he's bringing into the White Sox organization?
I don't know if we went quite that deep on that front, but he was asked about a Dylan Cease, kind of a Dylan Cease trade, and if that is a possibility, and the possibility is there. But I think specifically when it comes to Cease, the need is so great at starting pitching already. And then if you get rid of Dylan Cease on top of it, it's only going to get greater. So I think the idea there would be, yes, you're going to need a big haul, all the way, to whether it's a position player or a pitcher. But if you're getting rid of Cease, then that haul better address those starting pitching needs because, like I said, it becomes even greater at that point. We talked about TA. He starts the thing off by talking about, there are so many holes on this roster that need addressing. Well, here's what he did. He created another one in declining the TA option. Now, the way he said it today is that the reason that TA's option was declined was because there were so many holes. They needed that money in order to address all of those holes on the roster. But look, at the end of the day, now there's another one. You need to go out and find a shortstop, even if Colson Montgomery is coming down the track here at some point. So, there's a lot going on in terms of what the White Sox need to do to just be a better team than they were last year. And I'm talking about filling positions like we've been talking about for months now. But if Dylan Cease is going to be the guy that allows you to fill some of those holes, it better be in the starting rotation as well, because losing him would be quite the blow on that front.
Talking about TA there, Vinny, I want to know, firstly, did he talk about the reports of maybe they tried to trade him before they declined the option, and give you validity to that or not? And then also seeing that they do have a hole there at shortstop, did he talk about possibly being in a reunion for Tim Anderson if there's not a better situation with a different shortstop?
He did not talk about any I'm not quite sure even what reports you're referring to, but any talk of them trading him before that decision was made, he did not speak on that. But when it comes to the reunion, yeah, I think he both with Tim Anderson and Liam Hendriks, he talked about that if the situation presents itself later in the offseason, if it works out on both sides, obviously they didn't want to commit that much money to those two guys this season. So it would have to be something that would, address that concern. But I asked about Liam Hendriks specifically, hey, I brought up the whole thing we've been talking about. Is there interest? Is there aggressive interest in having him around and then using him to benefit your team for 2025? And he said it's not something they're going to go out and do, but if it happens, then they would welcome both of those guys coming back.
The report that Herb was referring to was Bob Nightingale in his, it probably takes you 25 minutes to read his notebook. The White Sox desperately tried to trade shortstop Tim Anderson, but couldn't find any takers before declining his $14 million option. Several teams believe he's best suited to play second base. So that was the report that Herb was, I think, referring to with TA and the Sox trying to, quote, desperately trade him. I don't think that the TA reunion is likely. I feel like we can obviously, Herb,
I don't either.
Any feelings?
Nah, I don't think it is. Right, you cut him for a reason.
You cut him for a reason, and it seemed like they want to use that $14 million. Like on other, they have a lot of holes. It seems like they want to use that $14 million very precisely to improve the defense. Tim Anderson doesn't provide great defense. That seems like a pretty good separator. Even with the Eloy trade, I don't know if he gave more framework to what that might look like, but if you're talking about players who can contribute defensively, we have seen that Eloy Jimenez has struggled throughout his career to contribute defensively. Did you get more insight to what Chris Getz thinks of Eloy Jimenez? Does he not like Eloy Jimenez? He doesn't like the team. Does he like Eloy Jimenez?
He likes all of these players, I think, individually. You know what I mean? I don't think he's not going to come out and say, this guy's gone. I don't want him on the team. But I guess my point is that, the point that he was making was, hey, look, that is obviously a very talented baseball player. And you can look over there and point to a very talented baseball player. But the combination thereof has not worked for the White Sox. And I think, in Chris's opinion, probably doesn't have a very high chance of working in the future either. So, listen, we're talking about a guy who wants to remake this team. And you brought up a great example of Tahau, which is improving defensively. And we can very much extrapolate by saying, that guy's not good at defense. He's probably doesn't have a future here, or I shouldn't even go that far, but just saying that that's an area that they would like to improve, right? So a very interesting thing here that I'll drop on you right now at the 30-minute mark of our program here today. I asked about, because we'll get into this more tomorrow when we dig through the sound, I'm sure, but I asked him about what you guys, the fans, are always asking me about. Would they move Yoan Moncada to second base? Yoan Moncada is not going to be moved to second base. But Chris Getz talking an awful lot about, kind of unprompted, about how Yoan Moncada has this amazing versatility, and we might see him at second some days, and at first some days, and in the outfield some days.
What?
And we all kind of did that. We were like, oh, really? But I don't think that's necessarily a plan. I shouldn't even say necessarily. That is not a plan of what the White Sox are trying to do. But they think that they've got a guy who is a very athletic player and a good defender, and should it help them out on any given day, perhaps they would explore his versatility a little bit more. But I would like to, before panic sets in here, Sean, which apparently I'm too late already, the question I asked was, would you move him to second base if you had an opportunity to add a good third baseman? And he basically said, he's so good at third base, we want to keep him at third base. But then went into that big versatility thing, so I thought I'd bring that up too, because it was interesting at the very least.
And I know we're going to get to the rest of the coaches later, but I found it interesting that Mike Tozar is now assistant hitting coach from field coordinator last year.
Yes.
It's weird. And the great Marcus Thames is back. The River Thames. It's good to have the AL Central well represented here with the coaches. Did he speak about why Mike Tozar went from the field coordinator to now the assistant hitting coach?
Yeah, so Mike Tozar was doing some hitting coaching of some, lower case maybe. He didn't have the title, obviously, but he was coaching from a hitting perspective at times last year. And so Chris said today that they had a priority to more clearly define what his role was on that front. And so in ushering out the guys who were titled the hitting coach and assistant hitting coach last year in Jose Castro and Chris Johnson, they've brought in Marcus Thames to be obviously the main hitting coach, but Mike Tozar gets a rebrand and he will be the actual assistant hitting coach, which perhaps just streamlines the communication a little bit more on that front.
I am flabbergasted by that Moncada thing.
I mean, you got broken right there,
Sean. I never understood the idea of moving him back to second base, because I think you need to be a little bit more athletic and a little bit more nimble to play those positions. First base is what happens when you are truly, just immobile and you've lost pretty much all of your athleticism. They're chained to that $24 million contract, but then even the idea of putting him in the corner outfield, I don't understand it at all. Hey, more power to him. I don't think he's on the team for 2025. So, run him into the ground, I guess, put him in left field and see what happens, or right field. I don't know.
This also, I'll dull it a little bit here. I just wanted to, I think what comes to mind is they didn't set out and say Yasmani Grandal is our first baseman, right? They didn't, but he played there every once in a while. And I see a similar situation here where they're not going to, Yoan Moncada is their third baseman, but on a day maybe when if it's going to work out, again, I'm not really even sure how that would present itself. He's a fantastically defensive third baseman. I don't know why you would want somebody else over there, but that is what Chris Getz said. So who knows? Maybe they go out and get Matt Chapman or something, and they don't need Moncada to play third anymore. I have no idea, Sean. I'm just throwing possibilities out there, I suppose. Remember the multiverse? Remember the baseball multiverse?
Have you remembered the great film Moneyball, where they go to that man's house and say it's extremely hard to play first base? He's just going to pick it up. He's just going to start playing first base.
And that was one of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So you would like to think that he could do anything.
That's true. It was very surprising that they moved him over to third base, and then everyone was like, "Oh, well, in Cuba he was a Gold Glove third baseman." So hey, maybe Yoan Moncada somewhere in some life, in some multiverse, is the Rafael Palmeiro of defensive first baseman. Maybe he's the Andrew Benintendi that the White Sox actually need. There's two players that haven't been brought up that I think we need to jump into, and then we'll take another break and we'll wrap things up with Vinny. First off, Andrew Vaughn. If we're talking about defense, he wasn't stellar at first base. It's been about 35 minutes, and we haven't talked about the first baseman. What insight did Getz give to Vaughn, if any?
Basically just that, they want him to work and kind of unlock that offensive potential that they've always seen in him. I think Chris described him as a potential middle of the order bat. Obviously, that's what he was projected to be, and I think that that's kind of still the hope. You got some new coaches in there, particularly on the hitting side, and maybe there's a few pearls of wisdom that Marcus Timms might be able to bring along that might benefit Andrew Vaughn. Certainly some of the other guys as well. But I think that they are full steam ahead on the Andrew Vaughn train, but obviously they want to see a little bit more than he has shown in the last couple of years.
And so we got to be stuck for 4 more years on Andrew Benintendi. Did he ever speak about what Andrew Benintendi will be next year? Like, we're talking about defense, and while I said he plays on all right defense if you're just looking at a game, but if you look at the metrics, he is a really bad left fielder. And so talking about what Chris said in the clip that we played at the beginning of the show, like, what are they going to do about Andy Benintendi? I know they just brought Grady Sizemore to be the outfield coach, but right now it's just
Jason Bourgeois has been hired as the outfield coach, so that will be his job, not Grady Sizemore. So there's that. On the Benintendi front, I asked him about him and kind of what the expectations would be, and I think the expectations are that they hope he gets back to being the guy that he's been in the past. That's not breaking news. I think Andrew Benintendi feels the same way. This is a guy who obviously had the health issues last year that Pedro Grifol described to me at the end of the season, and it seemed like it really just derailed everything for him. Chris Getz brought up something that Benintendi brought up to me as early as the middle of last season, which is getting stronger, and he wants to be stronger, not just to do the thing that Sean is always mad about and hit the ball in the air a little bit more, but to help him on the defensive front as well. That's what Chris brought up today. So I think the offseason is an important one for Andrew Benintendi because it seems like it can really define the course of his entire next season if he is able to prepare the way that he wants to prepare his body.
Is this man fully healthy? Do we know?
So, supposedly it got there at the end of last season, but it was much, much too late.
You really do feel right when you're playing the Oakland A's. When they show up into town, dust off all those cobwebs and you start feeling like you're 21 again. Let's talk about Michael Kopech. We talk about the lack of pitching. We talk about if you're trading Dylan Cease, that creates another huge hole because you don't have a ton of starting pitching right now. If he did talk about Kopech, in what light? Was it talking about he is a starting pitcher, or was there hemming and hawing about versatility? Can he play first base?
I don't know if there was hemming and hawing. Versatility was mentioned, but I think that the plan at the moment is what it was when we talked about it at the end of the season. This is a guy who's supposed to be in the White Sox starting rotation, and they hope that an offseason of working with Brian Bannister, who he's got the previous relationship with from Boston, can kind of get everything solved or at least pointed in a much better direction. We'll see if that's the case, though, and I think what Pedro Grifol had to say at the end of the year is probably the mindset, which is, hey, he is a starting pitcher, make him a starting pitcher. We hope with all of our being, do the White Sox, that he can be the starting pitcher we always envisioned him to be. And if we get to the end of that process and he can't crack the rotation, well, hey, remember when he was in the bullpen a couple years ago? That worked out pretty well. So he can do that too. So again, I don't think that is a plan where they're going into the season with a plan of not knowing. But the plan is undoubtedly make him the best starting pitcher he can be. But if the best starting pitcher he can be is not good enough, they still have a way, at least in their description, of maybe being able to utilize him in a different role. But I don't think that's something that anybody is planning on. Anybody with the White Sox is planning on going into the 2024 season.
Yeah, we saw with the Giants that they used so many different pitchers that they really didn't stick to the typical starter reliever role. So I do wonder if they're going to use that versatility to get innings from Kopech, whether that be in a starting role or reliever role. Herb, you're going to take us into the second ad break. You did such a great job with the first one. You're going to kill it on the second one. And then we're going to come back. We got a question from Drake Foss in the comments, and then we'll just tie up any spare parts, loose ends. Maybe Vinny will tell us that, pick any player. Who's playing second base? Maybe
Popeye
Corey
Rodriguez.
Lee. I didn't have one. It wasn't that funny because I didn't have a name ready. Go, Herb.
CHGO is sponsored or supported by Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer company since 1988. Their beer roster includes Oktoberfest, Beer Hug Family, 312 Wheat Ale, and what I'm holding right now, the Full Pocket Pills, the everyday beer for the brewers and myself. That's what they're drinking. What's your favorite beer right now, Sean? What are you drinking?
I love muting my mic during your ad reads. I love that 312. It's you really get that lemony hint.
Awesome. I like it too. I have some in my refrigerator right now. The event we have coming up on Thursday, sponsored by Goose Island, is our last scheduled CHGO Bears tailgate. It's Thursday, November 9th versus the Panthers. Go out and get you some free Goose Island if you pay for the tailgate ticket. And our diehards, CHGO diehards, get 20% off that tailgate ticket. So go there to allchgo.com and inquire about becoming a diehard, and so you can get 20% off that event, and also 20% off of future merch and a free t-shirt. So grab an ultra fresh brewery exclusive beer at Goose Island's original brew house on Clybourne Avenue in Lincoln Park, or from their tap room on Fulton Street in Westtown. Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer.
Also want to let you know about our friends over at Empire Today. With Empire Today, you get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a low guarantee price. And why not even throw in that Empire name that you know and love? You know the phone number, 588-2300, Empire Today. You know Lynn Haldren. They are the best place to get new flooring. So, of course, they have copycats, but those copycats can't beat the quality, service, and speed of Empire. And Empire keeps shopping for floors simple with a curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. You're not an expert in flooring. They are. What they leave out of their selection is just as important as what they put in, and their product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles. And their virtual floor designer is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's just easy. Snap a picture and instantly see how new floors will look in your room. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off when they use promo code CHGO. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/CHGO for details. Again, all listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use promo code CHGO. See empiretoday.com for empiretoday.com/CHGO for details. Also want to let you know about our friends over at FOCO. We're not in the studio, so we don't have all of our bobbleheads. We don't take them home. Herb, would you rather take the TA one home or the Southpaw one home?
The TA one home.
Okay. The Southpaw one, again, it's in Arizona. It's a spring training one. It's why we think Vinny might be Southpaw. He has, I guess he's proven that he's not, but did you see Southpaw at the GM meetings? Is he with Chris Getz? Okay.
No.
You didn't bring the suit. It must have been tough to check that in a bag. It must have been very weird to be like, hey, here's my green costume. But anyways, go check out FOCO. Get fitted in the best sports gear around. They got hoodies, shoes, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. They again mentioned the set decorations. A lot of awesome pieces. There are some really truly in-depth bobbleheads with great detail. Check out foco.com, FOCO.com, or click the link in the description below for all non-presale items. Use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. That one got a little bit too witty, and I'm sorry for the people who listen to us on the podcast version. If you do, make sure you're hitting the rating button. Hit the 5-star button. Leave a little comment. We really do like it, whether you're telling us we're being too witty in the ads are too long. Herb should stop swearing. Vinny needs to get replacement battery for his drill. A lot of reviews run that gamut, so we'd appreciate the support there. Hit the thumbs up button too. I think we got over like 90 people watching us, so hit the thumbs up button. We got Vinny live in Arizona. He's doing lovely work down there. So hit the thumbs up button on there. First, let's go to our friend Courtney in the chat asking, do they have a bullpen coach yet? Steven, feel free to flash the picture again. Charlie Montoyo is the bench coach. Ethan Katz is the pitching coach. Assistant pitching coach will be Matt Wise, which also is the bullpen coach, I believe. Hitting coach Marcus Thames, assistant hitting coach Mike Tozar, first base outfield coach Jason Bourgeois, third base infield coach Eddie Rodriguez, catching coach Drew Butera, and major league coach Grady Sizemore, that was announced today. I don't think I left anybody off there either. I guess, Marcus Thames got all the names. So that's the new coaching staff for the 2024 White Sox. And then Drake Foss has a question, and we'll go to Vinny here, saying, were any questions asked to Getz about possible changes to our farm system? What is it going to look like? I know, obviously, we heard from Paul Yanish, but I don't know if Getz maybe elaborated.
Yeah, I don't know if I can come at you with a ton of specifics on that. He was asked the question, and he said, yes, there will be changes. I think he's been very clear from the time he was hired that he wants to do kind of a top-to-bottom remake of what's going on here. And yes, he was the guy that was in charge of the farm system, no doubt about it, but I think that the general manager certainly has more power than the farm director to kind of set forward those principles and that kind of thing. So again, it all kind of goes back to establishing that identity. You've seen some personnel changes already. I would imagine that there will be, more, just because that's how the industry works. But certainly you've got a new GM in there who and a new farm director who might want to see some newness throughout the organization.
I don't know if he addressed, I'm sure he did, the catching situation. Because they don't have a real catcher that's played any significant amount of time in the major leagues with Corey Lee and Carlos Perez back there right now. But what do you have to say about going into 2024, what they're going to be looking for at the catcher position?
Yeah, kind of non-committal on exactly what is going to happen there. And maybe it's because they don't know kind of themselves what sort of opportunities will present themselves. He did say that Corey Lee impressed them at the end of last year with what he was doing defensively, working with the pitchers. Obviously, the offensive numbers were what they were, and he needs to improve there. But they want to give him the opportunity to become a major league catcher. Now, a major league catcher does not necessarily mean a number one major league catcher, nor does it necessarily mean a number two. So I think anything is probably possible on that front. Corey Lee is going to be part of that mix. As for where on that depth chart he will land, we'll see. To me, it probably doesn't strike as their biggest need, even if it is a need, certainly. Just because they've got a guy there in Corey Lee who they would like to maybe even give a shot to, I don't think they have that at second base or right field.
We've heard about a certain person in the division's leadership. We talked about maybe Chris Getz trying to make his mark within this new regime. Did the name Salvador Perez slip out of his mouth at all?
No. I thought you were going to ask about Tony La Russa.
Oh, did he bring up Tony La Russa?
Well, he was asked about Tony La Russa, and Tony La Russa is advising this team. He did not know if it was official, if he's on the payroll, the distinctions that were made last summer, if you'll remember correctly. He does not have that information, but he knows that Tony La Russa has been providing advice in an advisory role of some fashion. He's very happy to have that resource available to him, is what he said. Again, when you own a baseball team and your best friend has won 3 World Series as a manager, you can have your best friend come talk to your team, I guess. So I know that's not what Sox fans want to hear, but there you go. He's around as somebody who's providing some info. Whether I do not think, I've gotten no sense. I do not think under any circumstances he is like above Chris Getz on the organizational flow chart or anything like that. But he is being used as a resource, to quote Chris Getz.
Cool. Herb's got a question about the coaching staff and their MLB experience. But first, again, just about the Salvi Perez thing. Drew Butera, former teammate of Salvador Perez, now the catching coach. Would be nice to be caught by a guy, maybe your buddy, maybe Sal Perez and Drew Butera, maybe their kids hang out or something. I don't know, but, bring him to the South Side. It seems written in stone that Whit Merrifield and Sal Perez are coming. That's the biggest takeaway, 48 minutes in. Herb, do you want to ask about the coaching staff's MLB experience?
Yeah, it just seems like, and as you point out, Sean, on Twitter, it's like they have replaced a lot of people, either coaching staff and front office people, with people who have played either in the minor leagues or major leagues, with most of these guys have major league experience. Was there any emphasis on that? Was he just looking for good people and they happen to be major league experienced players?
Yeah, talking about the coaching staff specifically, it was brought up that all those guys had that kind of experience. He said it's not a criteria but that it's helpful. Why wouldn't it be if you're trying to relate to Major League Baseball players? Somebody who has played Major League Baseball, that certainly does strike as a positive there when you're trying to build a relationship with guys, when you're trying to get them to buy into what you're talking about. I think it's more notable for what's gone on in the front office from that standpoint. These are guys who they're being touted as having Major League experience. I think a lot of coaches across the game played Major League or minor league baseball. It's not too crazy to me to see the Major League experience on a coaching staff. When you talk about the front office, though, I think that's where it's notable. And I think, as we've talked about in the past, Chris has drawn the distinction with himself that, hey, I'm a former Major League player. I have that as a part of my toolbox. That is something that not many other folks that are here for the GM meetings might have. And so I think when you're adding a bunch of front office guys to the top levels in that front office, and it's former Major Leaguer, former Major Leaguer, former Major Leaguer, to me, that strikes as a concerted effort to try and get that in there and to try to maybe distinguish the White Sox from other places in their ability to draw on that experience.
Yeah, I think it's all about setting an example. I think that's what we're going to see with the free agent signings. That, again, if he's saying that they're going to be outside replacements, I would think that they're looking for something specific that this team doesn't have, and that does seem to be Major League experience and maybe experience that's different from the White Sox organization. Because, again, Tim Anderson might be a better athlete than Paul DeJong. We think that Tim Anderson might have a higher ceiling, but Tim Anderson was a first-round draft pick from the Chicago White Sox. He has the White Sox stink all over him. So I don't know if Chris Getz wants to try to figure out if Romy Gonzalez can be it, or if he's, again, trying to change the organization top to bottom. I mean, I remember just with Reinsdorf mentioning that he's never seen anyone run the minor leagues like Chris Getz. Maybe we'll never see anyone run the major leagues like Chris Getz before. I don't know if I'm buying into that a ton. But was there a big takeaway that we haven't jumped into yet? It feels like we've hit every position of the diamond, maybe outside of right field, but it seems like, again, it'll be an outside acquisition.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like Oscar Colas has really much expectation to start the season with the big league team at all. Chris went as far to say as it seems like his best fit is playing more minor league baseball right now. So I wouldn't expect Oscar Colas to be on the opening day roster. But if you're asking for a big takeaway, to kind of sum it all up, change, right? I mean, we're talking about this team trying to be very, very different from what it has been. I think everybody saw Chris Getz get promoted to replace Rick Hahn, and we're like, that's just the next guy down. That's more of the same. How could this be any different? And Chris said he's got to work to prove that. It's what he's doing. And whether it's going to end up working, I have no idea. But what he's doing is making change, bringing in new guys for the front office, bringing in new guys on the coaching staff, getting rid of Tim Anderson, the face of the franchise. This is very different. And we're hearing about him coming out and saying, I don't like the way this team plays. I don't like the team. He's basically saying the way that they've played the last few years, which was the result, unintentionally perhaps, but the result of Rick Hahn's very lengthy rebuilding process, it's not going to fly under the new guy, or at least he hopes that it doesn't fly. And so I think you're going to see moves this winter that might not give you a ton of confidence that this team can compete for the AL Central in 2024. Might not even be, the front office might not even be confident in that at the end of the winter. We'll see. But you're going to see it bring in a lot of guys who are going to do things the way they want them to do them. And, I think for folks who have gotten sick of seeing all the mistakes fundamentally, Chris Getz is trying to fix that for you. That seems to be at the top of his list, and whether that benefits them just moving forward in 24 and gives you a taste of the way that Chris Getz wants this team to play, or he's really setting things up for 2025 and beyond to construct the exact team that he wants. We're going to find that out. But the takeaway is that things are changing and things are going to be different. Again, are they going to be better? That remains to be seen, but they will be different.
Just an aside, somebody reached out to me when I initially found out about the Marcus Timms hiring and said, that's good hiring. That guy's going to be in people's asses immediately. So if you're not doing the things right, if you're not doing what he is set out for your point for his plan for the offseason or in season, He's going to get into you, and it's going to make sure you get things right. Now, this is his fourth organization in 4 years, so maybe his act wears thin really quickly.
Well, I think that's the job too, Herb. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. I mean, not only is it, you can point to it as that being the case for him, but the White Sox themselves are on their third hitting coach in 3 years. I mean, this is just kind of the job. Guys get blamed. Guys move around. The hitting coach position is not, strike me, it just isn't the most stable one in baseball.
Not the most stable. I agree with that. I don't really scoff too much at, he being on his fourth team in 4 years. Kevin Long has bounced around a decent amount. It's like, why would any team ever give up Kevin Long? They did. It's weird though that what Tim's brought to the Angels last year was an aggressive approach to swinging, like attacking 0-0. The White Sox already do that. The Angels, I think, swung at 9.5% of 0-0 pitches. The White Sox were second at 9%. So it's like this team is already massively aggressive. But I guess it's the one addition to the coaching staff that doesn't make a ton of sense. It does have major league experience. But you just think of Marcus Thames. He's a big, hulking dude. It doesn't seem like this is going to be a build of big hulking dudes. This doesn't seem like we're going to get the Eloy Jimenez's. We're going to get the Luis Roberts. We are going to try to get, again, maybe the less flashy players that can be consistent and give you 162 and show up and lace them up. I don't know how that really defines, but I guess my biggest takeaway is I made a list of teams. I don't know if you guys can see this. You can. The White Sox are in the middle. Isn't that fun? Over here are teams that are spending money. The Cubs have spent money before. The Yankees are known for spending money. The Red Sox always are spending money and signing big free agents. The Braves have amassed a ton of talent and a payroll near $200 million. Same with the Astros and Dodgers. The White Sox have an owner. You can even throw the Mets in here too. They just have never had success. The White Sox have an owner that I think can spend like these, but we're seeing more of a shift towards these teams. The teams that maybe, again, aren't as flashy, don't have the biggest payroll, can lose their best manager in baseball to an in-division rival because they don't want to pay him $8 million. But teams like the Brewers, Marlins, Rays, A's, and D-backs, they're always the guys that are signing the Brian Andersons, right? They're looking for people, the Colin Rays, no one flashy, but guys that get the job done. I don't think the White Sox are going to be spending near $180 million. I know that might be a point that I keep dragging on, and maybe it's annoying to that point. Hey, but it's baseball. It's how you build a team. And it seems like the White Sox are going to focus less on spending on big splashes, which they really have never done, but focus on the quality of player that they are bringing into the organization. Again, I'm not trying to, they could spend as much money as they want. Me sitting here in this little box is not going to change if they spend $180 million or $120 million. It just, again, I think shows on what the direction of this team is. And it does, again, signal what you said, Vinny, in change.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that listen, we just saw a Texas Ranger team that spent $1 gajillion win the World Series. And so I think everybody right now who thinks the way you do, Sean, is feeling very vindicated. And you're very welcome to feel that way. What I kind of always say is that there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I think that the best way is probably the best way for a lot of things in life, which is to meet in the middle somewhere, right? And so, listen, can
I clear something up?
Well, I just want to say that the White Sox haven't had a farm system that has produced the kind of guys that would allow them to be the A's or the Rays or whatever, right? Nor have they ever spent the big time money on a big time free agent. Maybe if they do all of these things a little bit, better, maybe if they focus on a lot of this stuff, that is the way to true sustained success. Again, whatever. You can feel whatever you want to feel. My point just being that if you're judging a win or loss in an offseason or an offseason move or an offseason signing based solely on what the price tag is, you're not waiting to see what the outcome is. And so I'm not arguing against spending. If they want to go out and spend $1 gajillion on Blake Snell, go right ahead. That fits their bill of setting themselves up for success down the road. That's fine. But I think Chris Getz is trying to do a lot of different things on a lot of different fronts that would improve them in areas where it's not just, how much money did they spend? They didn't spend enough. That's it. They lose kind of thing.
Well, and again, the teams that are over here, I mean, 4 of the 5 teams made the playoffs. So what I'm trying to say is, I guess the White Sox have been in the middle. It seems like, oh, we're going to spend near the top 10, but we're not actually going to be in the top 10. And we're not going to really focus on our farm system, right? It seems like more of a shift to, hey, let's quit middling and let's try to be the best organization we can be. That's all I'm trying to say. I don't care what the price tag is. I mean, teams spend less than the White Sox.
Well, you do.
No, but I mean, I guess I'm trying, like, again, me complaining in this box is not going to change how much money they spend. I want them to be the best organization possible. So again, the teams that are over here are spending less money than $180 million. So it's, again, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. I'm not denying that. It seems like the White Sox have kind of, been, oh, we'll be spenders, we'll not be spenders. We feel like we have a team that we can add to. We're going to add to it, right? It just seems like Chris Getz' main focus for 2024, whether they spend $180 million, $120 million, it seems like they're going to win anywhere from 75 to 72 games, regardless of the price tag. It just seems mostly about change, about let's try to improve the quality of this organization. It really does feel like Chris Getz tried to lay that out today. That again, it's about improving the quality of this team. I'm not trying to make it about the budget. I'm trying to make it about Chris Getz's motives here. That's the focus. This is the brain we're trying to peer into for the next X years. Could be 15 years. We don't know.
25.
Job for life. It could be Bill Self. Any final points that we need to know about the sun is setting in Arizona? You're probably losing.
I'm about to slip into darkness. So we'll go ahead and save it for to use a Chris Getz term, a deep dive tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, we'll have more clips. Also, make sure you check out the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We'll be uploading that entire hour-long session between Chris Getz and the media, so you can delve into it for yourself. And Vinny's going to be writing an article that you can check out at allchgo.com. Follow Vinny at Vinnie Duber. He is live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and all of his tweets will be coming from Scottsdale, Arizona as well. So, you get some Arizona-themed tweets. So, follow Vinny at Vinnie Duber. That's Herb Lawrence. You can follow him at Ecknerwall23. Herb, I don't want to cut you off. You're not slipping into the darkness. Any final thoughts?
I mean, I'm always am. No
okay.
Final thoughts.
I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me at Sean_W_Anderson. You can follow the show at CHGO_White Sox. Thank you to everyone for hanging out with us in the chat. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. And thank you to Stephen Nicholas for producing the show. We will talk to you tomorrow with more Chris Getz analysis of what he had to say. Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.